Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 2 a.m. tapes. Here we share chilling stories and mysteries that come alive when the world sleeps. So turn off the lights, put on your headphones, and listen closely. Because at 2 a.m., the tapes start to speak. The old laptop, a heavy charcoal gray beast salvaged from my uncle's Tet graveyard, groaned as its aged circuits sputtered to life. The screen, scarred by years of neglect, flickered, displaying the ghostly remnants of a long obsolete operating system. Summer had choked the small village of Kamal gone, leaving me stranded in my ancestral home with nothing but dusty tomes and the phantom signals of a long-dead internet connection for company. My relentless curiosity, a family curse, drew me to the darker corners of the digital world, leading me to tales of encrypted networks and hidden corners. Eventually, I stumbled upon whispers of a browser that promised passage to the dark web. I had no grand purpose, no illicit desires fueling my descent. It was the sheer allure of the unknown, a childish urge to peek behind the forbidden door. The dark web, when it finally materialized on the screen, was a dizzying labyrinth of indecipherable links and shadowy forums. It felt less like a hidden network and more like a digital wasteland. Then, amidst the digital detritus, a link stood out, stark and unsettling: the Whispering Archive. No explanation, no indication of its content, just those three words, hanging in the digital void. A knot of unease tightened in my stomach, battling with the intoxicating pull of the mysterious. My mouse cursor hovered, trembling slightly, before I succumbed and clicked. The page that loaded was minimalist and menacing, a black abyss punctuated by faint, pulsing red text. At its center resided a single, small, grainy video window. Unlike any video I had encountered, there were no controls, no play button, no pause, no timeline. It simply displayed a loop of a scene. The video depicted a room steeped in antiquity and decay. Cobwebs draped across unseen corners, and dust motes danced in the weak rays of light filtering through a single, grime-streaked window. A heavy, ornately carved wooden chair sat alone in the heart of the room, conspicuously empty. The silence emanating from the laptop speakers was heavy, broken only by a subtle, almost subliminal hiss of static. It felt like holding your breath in a haunted house. Time ceased to exist as I stared at the screen, utterly captivated. The air in my small room in the old house grew thick and cold. Then, from the deepest shadow in the corner of the video, something began to stir. It wasn't a living being in the traditional sense. It was a distortion, a tear in the fabric of light and shadow, slowly, agonizingly, taking on a vaguely humanoid form. It was unnaturally tall, impossibly gaunt, and seemed to devour the very light around it, leaving a void in its wake. As it solidified, the faint static from the laptop intensified, morphing into a soft, sibilant whisper that seemed to bypass my ears and resonate directly within my skull. It wasn't a language I recognized, yet it conveyed a chilling sense of presence, an unspoken voice filling the silent room. My room. The shadowy figure drifted towards the antique chair with a fluid, unsettling grace, its movements defying the natural laws of physics. It didn't so much sit as it merged with the wood, its form flowing into the contours of the chair, becoming an indistinguishable part of the aged furniture. The whispering intensified, no longer a singular hiss, but a chorus of faint voices, overlapping and intertwining, each a breathy sigh that sent shivers down my spine. A cold dread washed over me, and the fine hairs on my arms stood on end. It felt as though unseen eyes were watching me, unseen breath on the back of my neck, despite my utter solitude. The air grew heavy, charged with an unseen energy. Then, 2 points of light pierced the shadowy void where a face should have been. 2 pinpricks of pure, malevolent red blazed into existence, fixing their gaze directly out of the screen, directly into my eyes. A jolt of icy terror shot through me, paralyzing me in my chair. This was no mere recording. It was a connection, a perverse form of interaction. The whispering escalated, becoming more insistent, more demanding, and I began to discern fragmented sounds within the chorus, like the echoes of distant screams carried on a phantom wind. The room in the video, moments before empty, now seemed to shimmer with faint, translucent figures, barely visible, writhing in silent agony in the space around the chair. Their forms flickered like dying embers. My mind screamed at me to shut down the laptop, to obliterate this digital nightmare, to flee into the comforting embrace of the real world. But my limbs refused to obey. An invisible force seemed to hold me captive, pinning me to my seat. The red eyes on the screen burned into me, as if peering directly into the darkest recesses of my soul, and the whispering in my ears devolved into a frantic, incomprehensible babble. 1,000 desperate voices clamoring for attention, each one a chilling lament. A distinct sensation, cold and skeletal, brushed against my shoulder, a tangible touch in my otherwise empty room. My breath caught in my throat. Suddenly, the grainy video flickered violently, the faint red text on the screen dissolving into a chaotic mess of distorted pixels. The whispers coalesced into a deafening roar, an echoing cacophony that resonated deep within my bones, rattling my teeth. The figure in the chair began to stretch, its impossibly elongated limbs reaching out of the confines of the screen, a gaunt, clawed hand materializing from the digital ether, dripping with a viscous, unseen fluid. It was breaking through. It was coming for me, reaching across the digital divide. The air in my room crackled with an unnatural energy. With a surge of pure, unadulterated terror, the paralysis finally broke. I recoiled, knocking my chair backwards, and slammed the laptop lid shut with a desperate force, the sharp click echoing through the silent house like a death knell. My heart pounded against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the silence. I stumbled backwards, my eyes fixated on the closed laptop, half expecting the screen to shatter, for something to claw its way out. A cold sweat slicked my skin. Days bled into weeks. I tried to bury the memory, to rationalize it as a sophisticated hoax, a terrifyingly realistic digital prank played out on the fringes of the internet. But the whispers persisted, faint echoes at the periphery of my hearing, particularly in the oppressive silence of the night. The faint, musty odor of dust and decay seemed to cling to me, an invisible shroud, even after repeated washings. And in the corners of my vision, fleeting movements danced, shadows that flickered and vanished before I could fully focus, leaving me with a gnawing sense of unease. Sleep offered no escape, haunted by fragmented images of red eyes and silent screams. The old laptop remains in the attic, shrouded in dust, a silent, malevolent presence in the forgotten shadows. I refuse to go near it, to even acknowledge its existence. But I know, with a chilling certainty, that it is more than just a broken machine. It's a conduit, a doorway to something ancient and evil. And every so often, when the village sleeps and the moon casts long, eerie shadows across the valley, I swear I can hear a faint, sibilant whisper drifting down from the attic, a breathy murmur that sounds sickeningly like my name. It's waiting, patiently waiting for the day my curiosity, my fatal flaw, leads me back to that dusty corner, back to the lure of the whispering archive, waiting for me to lift the lid once more. The red eyes are still watching, I know it, and the whispers are growing louder.